Greetings to everybody out there in the YouTube world. Shout out to all my subscribers on here. Peace and power elevation. It's your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect. Live in effect. Okay. So today is I'm continuing to do videos about Black psychiatrists and psychologists and also civil rights activists who were unsung, meaning that they were not recognized. They didn't gain any type of credit for the work they have done in the community. So a lot of things that we don't know about these people, and I think that these things need to be shed into light. So, on my channel I deal with a lot on history for the most part, and of course I talk about other things like social issues, political issues, etc. All right, so this topic is about Howard Thurman. So Howard Thurman, you can put him on the category as a polymath, and you will see that a lot with a lot of African Americans. They were polymath. So he was a civil rights activist. He was a theologian. I mean, someone who studied theology because he was a pastor. He was an author. So yeah, he has worked alongside with Dr. Martin Luther King. Yeah, he has written many books. Okay. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and share some information. And make sure you guys subscribe and hit the notification bell, share the channel, like the channel, all that great stuff, etc., etc. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right. Let me start with the article first. Okay. So right here, I'm on what it says, the reader view of Wikipedia, right? So as you can see, this is Howard Thurman over here to my right. It says Howard Washington Thurman was born November the 18th, 1899, and he died April the 10th, 1981. He was an American author, philosopher, theologian, educator, and civil rights leader. As a prominent religious figure, he played a leading role in many social justice movements and organizations of the 20th century. Thurman's theology of radical nonviolence influenced and shaped a generation of civil rights activists, and he was a key mentor to leaders within the civil rights movement, including Martin Luther King Jr. All right. So he served as the dean of Rankin Chapter at Howard University from 1932 to 1944, and as a dean of Marsh Chapel at Boston University from 1953 to 1965. So in 1944, he co-founded, along with Alfred Fisk, the first major interracial interdenominational church in the United States. Okay, so he died on April the 10th, 1981 in San Francisco, California. So where it says he was born in Florida, in Daytona Beach. Okay, he spent most of his childhood in Daytona, Florida, where his family lived in Waycross, one of Daytona's 3 all-black communities. He was profoundly influenced by his maternal grandmother, Nancy Ambrose, who had been enslaved on a plantation in Madison County, Florida. Nancy Ambrose and Thurman's mother, Elise, were members of Mount Bethel Baptist Church in Waycross and were women of deep Christian faith. Thurman's father, Saul Thurman, died of pneumonia when Howard Thurman was 7 years old. After completing 8th grade, Thurman attended the Florida Baptist Academy in Jacksonville, Florida, 100 miles from Daytona. It was one of 3 high schools for African Americans in Florida at the time. All right. So in 1923, he graduated from Morehouse College as a valedictorian. In 1925, he was ordained as a Baptist minister at First Baptist Church of Roanoke, Virginia, while still a student at Rochester Theological Seminary, which is now a divinity school. He graduated from Rochester Theological Seminary in May of 1926 as a valedictorian in a class of 29 students from June of 1926 until the fall of 1928. Thurman served as a pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church in Oberlin, Ohio. In the fall of 1928, he moved to Atlanta, Georgia, where he had a joint appointment to Morehouse College and Spelman College in philosophy and religion. During the spring of semester of 1929, Thurman pursued further studies as a special student at Haverford College with Rufus Jones, a noted Quaker philosopher and mystic. All right, so that's another picture of him over here to my right. Detailed from a stained glass window featuring Howard Thurman at Howard University Andrew Ruckin Memorial Chapel. Right? So let's go down. Thurman traveled broadly, heading Christian missions and meeting with world figures. In 1935 and 1936, he led a 6-month delegation of African Americans invited to India for meeting. At Bardoli, they spoke with Mahatma Gandhi, who asked persistent, pragmatic questions about the Black American community and its struggles. Training for Satyagraha was discussed its difficulties in the extreme address. When Thurman asked Gandhi what message he should take back to the United States, Gandhi said he regretted not having made nonviolence more visible as a practice worldwide and remarked, it may be through the Negroes that the unadulterated message of nonviolence will be delivered to the world. All right, so in 1944, Thurman left his tenure position at Howard to help the Fellowship of Reconciliation establish the Church for the Fellowship of All Peoples, also known as the Fellowship Church in San Francisco. He served as a co-pastor with a white minister, Alfred Fisk. Many of their congregants were African Americans who had migrated to San Francisco from Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas for jobs in the defense industry. The church helped create a new opportunity for many in San Francisco. Thurman was invited to Boston University in 1953, where he became the dean of Marshall Chapel. He was the first Black dean of a chapel at a majority white university or college in the United States. In addition, he served on the faculty of Boston University School of Theology. Thurman was also active and well known in the Boston community, where he influenced many leaders. So after leaving Boston University in 1965, Thurman continued his ministry as a chairman of the board and director of the Howard Thurman Educational Trust in San Francisco until his death in 1981. So as you can see, he was a prolific author, writing 20 books on theology, religion, and philosophy. The most famous of his work, Jesus and the Disinherited, which was in 1949. That was when it was published. Deeply influenced Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders, both black and white, of the modern civil rights movement. Thurman had been a classmate and friend of King's father at Morehouse College. King visited Thurman while he attended Boston University, and Thurman, in turn, mentored his former classmate's son and his friends, served as a spiritual advisor to King. Sherwood Eddy, James Farmer, A.J. Mustay, and Paulie Murray at Boston University. Thurman also taught Reb Zalman Shalomi, who cited Thurman as among the teachers who first compelled him to explore mystical trends beyond Judaism. So, his life, he was married to Katie Kelly on June 11, 1926, less than a month after graduating from seminary. Katie was a 1918 graduate of the teacher course at Spelman Seminary, which is now Spelman College. Their daughter Olive was born on October of 1927. Katie died in December of 1930 of tuberculosis, which she probably had contracted during her anti-tuberculosis work. So on June 12 of 1932, Thurman married Sue Bailey, whom he had met while at Morehouse when Sue was a student at Spelman. Howard and Sue Bailey, Thurman's daughter, Anne, was born in October 1933. Sue Bailey Thurman was an author, lecturer, historian, civil rights activist, and founded the Afro-American Women's Journal, and she died in 1996. All right, so I'm going to cover up a topic about Sue Bailey Thurman as well. Okay, I'm going to cover up a topic about her. So, I'll probably do that later on or the following day. All right, so let's go under where it says his honor and legacy. So he was honored as a canon of the Cathedral of St. John Divine, which is in New York City in 1974. The Ebony magazine called Thurman one of the 50th most important figures in African American history. In 1953, Life rated Thurman among the 12 most important religious leaders. All right, in 1986, A. McAchine founded the Howard Thurman Center at Boston University to preserve and share the legacy of Howard Thurman. So in 2020, the center moved to a larger space occupying 2 floors in the Peter Fuller building at 808 Commonwealth Avenue. The Howard Gottlieb Archival Research Center at Boston University holds the Howard Thurman Papers and the Sue Bailey Thurman Papers, where they are cataloged and available to researchers. All right. So it was founded, the project papers were founded in 1992. The project mission is to preserve and promote Thurman's vast documentary record, which spans 63 years and consists of approximately 58,000 items of correspondence, sermons, published writings, and speeches. The Howard Thurman Papers project is located at Boston University School of Theology. All right, Howard Thurman University School of Divinity named their chapel the Thurman Chapel in memory of Howard Thurman. And then he had a poem which was called I Will Light Candles This Christmas. It has been set to music by British composer and songwriter Adrian Payne, both as a song and as a choral piece. The choral version was first performed by Applesome Choral Society in December 2007, an arrangement for school choirs which can be performed in one or two parts with piano accompaniment was first performed in December 2010. All right. So these are the list of books he has written throughout his lifetime. All right. Okay. All right. So that is that information. So here's a piece from him, which is called An Inward Journey in the Well Springs of the Black Prayer Tradition. Okay. So it says, I pray every day, all day long, in a big open field that was just being opened up as a new ground for 3 weeks at Slave. Each of us in his own way finds the stars leading to the holy place, Howard Thurman. Always have portrayed, men always have prayed and men always will pray. All right. All right. So let's see where we're going to go down to. So it says the prayer of Martin Luther King. The prayer life of Martin Luther King Jr. was rooted in spiritual values and cultural tradition that extended back generation in America and many more in Africa. King's forebears brought the concept and habit of prayer to these shores as early as the 1600s. They prayed for deliverance in countless African languages as they experienced a common horror in the belies of slave ships on the ocean block and in the cotton and rice and tobacco fields in the New World. The ancestral past was reverent largely through prayer, and the art and discipline of prayer became one of the key markers of Black faith. Cain drank from the well springs of this Black prayer tradition while also enlarging it in the context of a movement for freedom, justice, and human community. All right. And it says the foundation for much of King's understanding of prayer was actually laid by slaves on the plantation of the American South. Imbued with a deep sense of the sacred, the slaves never thought of prayer as dogmatic prose or outdated ritual, and they refused to reduce the practice of praying to a mere exercise in expositionism or to some Mandarin attempt to appease God and impress believers. They they variously refer to prayer as talking with God, ringing up heavens, kneeling and bowing before the throne of grace, and taking one's burden before the Lord. And phrases like praying in the Spirit and laying the soul bare before the Lord were commonly heard in the slave quarters. This kind of language and thinking about prayer were passed down from generation to generation, thus becoming a critical component of what Lauren W. Levine calls the orally transmitted expressive culture of African Americans. All right. Okay, so going down to where it says King's ancestors never doubted the necessity of prayer as a vital part of daily life. Prayer for them was much more than the heart and soul of religion or an essential aspect of spirituality. It was a necessary ingredient in the total experience of living. In other words, the need for a vigorous and earnest prayer as adoration, confession, intercession, petitions, and thanksgiving never faded because the slaves lived with a profound sense of their own finitude and inadequacy, of the unspeakable sorrow that clouded their daily existence, of their utter dependence on God, and of the need to thank God for the many blessings bestowed on them despite the pain of bondage. Significantly, they emphasize prayer in sermons and tales and often through the prism of song. Pray for me when you go to the altar. Please please don't forget to pray for me. And pray all the member, O Lord, marked by the opposing rhythms of the heart and the most inspired voicing of faith. Pray on them lights. Oh, yeah, pray on them lights us over. Pray on the union break a day. So basically, it talks about the journey of Dr. King and the importance of prayer. Okay. So that's what he's speaking on in this article right here, the importance of prayer and why prayer is such a big thing within our community. So many people may not believe that prayer doesn't have enough significance for us, and in the way that's true. But at the same time, if you look at it, prayer also represents a form of meditation. It's like a form of meditation and being able to relieve your anger, your sadness, and feel more rejuvenated. Okay. So for our ancestors, when they prayed, well, it wasn't a prayer as in sense of praying to Jesus. It was more like chanting. They chanted, calling out the name of their ancestors. Or for those that were Muslim, they called out the name of Allah to be able to have some type of tranquility while they was going through the adversity of slavery and being tortured and all these different things. So for them, chanting and prayer was always important and stay important in our community. It is. It's something that's not going to fade away anytime soon. All right. That's going to always be a big part of us and be a part of our elders. Prayer, that's all they know. Okay. All right. So these are the books that he's written. My bad. The Fellowship Church, Howard Thurman, and 20th Century Religious Left. Well, this actually was written by Amanda Brown, but it's about the biography of Howard Thurman and his life. So it's called The Fellowship Church. And let's see, what year was it written? Let's look on the copyright. Okay, so it was written in 2021. Okay, so it was written in 2021. The name of the book is called Fellowship Church. All right. And the next one, this is his book right here. It's called The Jesus and Disinherited. Okay. Jesus and Disinherited book. All right. This is the one that he wrote in 1949. And this one's called With Head and Heart, which is also written by him. And this was written in 1979. Okay. All right. This one is called Deep is the Hunger, Meditation for Apostles of Sensitiveness. All right. Let's see what year this book came out. Okay, I'm not sure what year that book came out, but anyways. All right, so let's start with the first session. It says, a sense of history. There is a universal urgency for both personal and social stability. This urgency can find fulfillment along several lines. A fresh sense of history must be developed. All the events of our world must be placed in a context of incident that reveals their profound interrelatedness. History on this planet must be regarded as not as individual happenings unrelated to social process, but instead as overlapping patterns of group behavior brought into play by a wide variety of creative, personal, and interpersonal forces at work in the world. History is not irrational. It has a deep logic and consistency. God is the God of history. He does not stand apart as some mighty spectator, but it is in the process and the facts ever shaping them in ways that we can understand, in ways beyond our powers to grasp, to ends that fulfill a great and good destiny for men. This is no idle or pious wish. Examine the past and behold the unfolding of living process. Mm. Then it goes on to say, everybody knows that something has happened. Just when it happened, no one knows. But there is complete agreement that somewhere something very important has given way and all sorts of things are pulled out of shape or are sagging or falling apart. The results, nerves. There is a sense of fear as of some impending doom around the next turning in the road. There seemed to be a climate of disaster that does not quite materialize into calicism or calamistic incident, only a general loss of moral explanation abound. Some say that we are caught in the open independence of the sea, far away from any port. In a storm of water, in a storm of world revolution is upon us. They point to the breaking up of the century-old social patterns all over the world. India is free for the first time in centuries, and deep within that freedom, there is the division of Pakistan and Hindu. Nevertheless, the ferment within the country could not be stopped by half measures. It said the great mass of untouchables, by a stroke of the pen, are given freedom of movement and person within the wider political and social freedom of the country itself. Illustration may be multiplied from the ends of the earth as well as far within our own country. Who would have dreamed that a report like to the secure these rights would have been projected and produced by the Democratic Party, the party of the solid South? There is the fact that we have passed through a period of total war. Always in the past, war has been the specialized function of a particular group within the state set up and organized for the purpose. But total war is new. By total war is meant that every man, woman, and child in the state was somehow involved. Also, that every conceivable resource of the national life was involved. That every social force was oriented to that end. This meant and continued to mean that no one may claim detachment. The result is deep strains and stresses in the soul of a people for which they have no preparation and from which they seem to be no sure basis for recovery. One could go on to call attention to the development and use of the atomic bomb. Many persons are sure not only that the development of the bomb marked the initiation of a new era for mankind, but that it's also killed something precious in the life of the race. That's a pretty deep book. I'm not even gonna lie. All right, so this is called Deep is the Hunger, Meditation for Apostles of Sensitiveness. All right, so that's all I have for today. So I thank you guys for those of you that was watching, tuning in. Thank you for coming in and watching my channel and checking out the information. And also make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, share the channel, like the channel, all the good stuff. And until next time, y'all take it easy on yourself. Peace and power, elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany, and I'm logging off saying deuces. All right, be safe, and I'll connect with y'all later.